Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I'm not here today. Hopefully your sub has got you lined up on Google Classroom so that you can get today's activities done. I've listed here all of the stuff that you're going to do today. So hopefully you'll have enough time to get through the first couple of activities. If you find you don't, then it will be homework. Okay, so we're going to finish up some notes. So you go ahead and take out your notes from last class. And we will, I'm going to move myself up here, get ready to go on the PowerPoint. All right, so last class I gave you guys the article, the gerrymandering article, and I asked you to read and mark the text. If you don't have that, you feel free to ask the sub. I'll put it in the folder and you can get a copy of it. Really, the focus of that is to kind of introduce the idea of gerrymandering, what it is, and why. It's kind of the what and the why. Excuse me. So gerrymandering came about as a result of politicians who had been elected to a district. And in order for them to maintain control of that district after district lines were being either redrawn or in some cases drawn for the first time, or not even necessarily to maintain control, but to gain control, they would often draw the district lines to include or exclude certain members of society that they thought would or would not vote for them. And there's different types, and we'll go over what the different types are. So the biggest thing here is that they draw these district lines to favor one political party. Both parties do it, the liberals and the conservatives. They include clustering the opposing parties' votes into a few or spreading them out. Both will be effective in diminishing the power of one political party over the other. When this happens, it basically eliminates any risk that that party will be reelected. So regardless of who votes in any given district, it's possible that a congressman could basically burrow into a district and not be voted out. So here are some examples. So up in the left here, we have examples. So, right, we talked about the census last class. And so here's like a district map, might be an example. And in, the ideal sitting, these lines would be drawn in a fairly symmetrical pattern, straight across, straight down, maybe, crisscross across the map. But ideally, it's kind of wherever the population lies, that's where your district is. Sometimes they may have to move a little bit to balance the population, because we talked about single district versus at large. These are considered single district voting platforms. So this star and this star represent the only people who can represent this district. And so in an election year, or in the case of what we would call reapportionment, so let's say there's a census, they find that this district has grown and they need to add a district, and that's what they've done here. In order for one party or the other to sort of gain control, they may draw the district lines in this district in a way that could be detrimental to the other party. Because as it stands right now, this party right here would have 4 yellow and 3 green. That means this would be or orange. This would be an orange district. Now, so here are the different examples. This is something that's called packing. And what they have done is quite literally packed all of the green into one district. So that means in this particular state or city or whatever, the green will only have 1 district and the orange would have 2 districts. Now, what kind of problems can you imagine? Well, the orange will always win in any kind of, if there's a policy that they want to pass or don't want to pass, the oranges are going to control that party or control that decision. Packing happens when the state legislators pack as many voters from the opposing party into a single district. So the orange have given up 1 district in order to gain 2. Another example is called cracking. Cracking is when the green votes are distributed so minimally that there's no chance that any of the Green voters could ever possibly win either an election or, in this case, sometimes it's just about getting policy passed. So as you can see here, the orange wins all 3 districts. This is called cracking. And the last one is something that's called kidnapping. And that is when they actually take the person who was the star represents the actual representative, and they cut them out of their own district, and they put them into another district. So this Green could never possibly win this district, and they don't even get to represent their other districts. So basically they've done it in such a way that the oranges still maintain control of all 3, and the person who had initially been in power can't even be in power anymore. This is called kidnapping. When the party in power redraws the lines to move a minority party incumbent into a different district. So if this were, if orange represented white and green represented Hispanic, it would be like moving the lines so that this Hispanic leader was now living in a white district where they had no more political power. This is called kidnapping. And any of these, whether it's kidnapping, cracking, or packing, if they are done based on race, technically, in this case, it would be called bleaching. So some more examples of gerrymandering. So let's say that this is like, in a perfect square neighborhood. And so in this, these are blocks. And in this neighborhood, all of the Republicans apparently live on these 2 streets, and all the Democrats live on these 3 streets. Now, in a perfect representation, the lines are just drawn. The blue, which do have more people, wins this particular race, and it is as it should be. In this one, it's compact but unfair. In this case, the blue win all of the districts. So that's not fair. That gives the red votes no voice. And in this one, they actually draw the district lines. They gerrymander them to such an extent that the red wins. So the group that actually is a smaller portion or population actually wins the vote. And so that's neither fair nor compact. If you haven't done the gerrymandering article, I'd encourage you to stop now and do that gerrymandering article. It will help clarify a lot of information. Okay, so if you need to stop, pause, take care of the gerrymandering information, please do so, and then come back. We're going to talk a little bit about qualifications for the House and for the Senate. So we've talked about qualifications before. We talked about them when we looked at the Constitution. These are what we would call formal qualifications. That means that they are actually in the Constitution. That's what it means when it says formal. There are tons of informal qualifications, and we'll also talk about some of them as well. Representatives must be at least 25 years old. They have to have been a citizen for at least 7 years, and they have to be an inhabitant of the state. Now, it's custom that they live in the district that they represent. So if you want to be the District 4 House rep, then you need to live in District 4. That's just a custom that we've had. The House has the power to refuse to seat an elected member, to punish members, and to expel them. So they do have some power over their own members. Just sometimes it's important to make sure that everyone's behaving the way that they should. Now, as I said, there were some informal qualifications, and these basically are just like the things, the characteristics that make someone a good candidate or perceived as a good candidate. They could be gender. We know that most people who hold office in our national government are men. Ethnicity, most are white. Political experience, it's rare. Of course, this last election has sort of blown that out of the water, for anyone to be elected to any kind of federal position without political experience. Now, on the flip side of that, name recognition played a big part in President Trump's election to the White House, and of course, party affiliation. Being an incumbent is a big advantage. An incumbent is someone who's already holding the office. So currently, Trump is the incumbent. When he runs again in 2020, if he runs again in 2020, he will be the incumbent. And that means that he has a significant advantage. And as you can see here, it says 90% of those seeking reelection to the House win. So in the House of Representatives and even in the Senate, and I haven't ever gone back to look, but I'm guessing that there's a high percentage of people, of presidents who have been elected versus not being reelected. In my lifetime, of course, Jimmy Carter and President Bush are the only two that have not been reelected. And the last one is the ability to raise money. It's very, very important, which is one of the things that really excludes a lot of people at the national level. It is so very, very expensive. Now, with the internet, the way that the internet is and the way that those things are changing, it is possible for someone with fewer financial supporters to win a campaign. But down here, I made a point to show you guys. In 2008, the average cost of running a winning campaign for the seat in the House of Representatives was over $1 million. That's a lot of money, and that's every 2 years. So the 17th Amendment, talking just a little bit about the senators. Senators were chosen prior to the passage of the 17th Amendment. They were chosen by the House. Why is that important? Well, if you're chosen by the House of Representatives, who are you truly responsible to? And I think people felt that that the senators then became too distanced from their Republican responsibilities, and that's being a representative of the people. So in 1913, the 17th Amendment was passed, and it said that senators would, from this point forward, be elected by popular vote by the people, and that during any one election, so every 2 years, only one senator from each state can be elected. That means they stagger. So in 1920 or in 2018, you could have a senator elected. In 2020, you could have a senator elected. And then in 2022, in your state, you wouldn't have anyone up for election in the Senate. And then it would begin the process all over again. Senate terms, there are no limits to how many terms a person can serve in the Senate. They have the ability to run as many times as they want. However, they are staggered, which I talked about a little bit before. And then, of course, the House also every 2 years, but they don't have those. They're not staggered. If a senator dies, resigns, or is expelled, they're typically replaced by a person appointed by the governor of their state until a special election. So it really depends on how close they are to a regular election as to whether or not there'll be a special election to replace them. So we talked about this a little bit last time. Senators are thought of as being more focused on national issues and are more likely to be seen as national political leaders than the House. A lot of it just has to do with the fact that they're in office longer. They are not as susceptible to the pressures of public opinion. That means since they're not running for office as often, it's every 6 years instead of every 4 years or 2 years. It allows them to really focus on their job more than the process of getting reelected. Senators are more diverse. It's not uncommon for a state to have a Republican and a Democrat representing them in the Senate, as opposed to in the House, where Kansas, for example, all 4 representatives currently representing Kansas in the House are Republicans. So the diversity is a little bit more common. I think we are more moderate in the Senate, and so the feeling that having one or the other isn't necessarily as big of a deal. Senators also receive a lot more national recognition. Again, they sit on a lot of committees. Senators are often the Senate is the branch or the House that will approve appointments. So especially in a president's first couple of years, the Senate plays a really key part to that because the president's appointing members to his cabinet. He's appointing members, people to different administrations and offices. And so because of that process, or even the Supreme Court, senators get a lot more recognition. And senators often are sort of coined as the jumping off place. The Senate is actually a jumping off place for the presidency. Many of our presidents served in the Senate. Senators must meet a stricter set of requirements. So just like with the House, there are certain things that they have to do. The framers set the requirements also in the Constitution. They have to be 30 years old. They have to be, 9 years a citizen, and they have to be from the state that they represent. They really wanted this body to be a more responsible body, where the House has the ability to focus on more current events or issues that are or hot topic. The Senate really is looking down the road. They're trying to determine what's coming, how is this going to affect the United States several years down the road, things such as that. So I know that was super fast. Please feel free to rewind, go back, take notes. You can pause the video at any time. Now, what I would like for you to do, you're going to take out the worksheet that looks like this on the front, looks like this on the back. And on this worksheet, you're going to do this front side first, and you're going to either on a sheet of notebook paper, you can do it on the margins if you write really small, but you're going to read, so there's 4 candidates and they're all running for Senate. And I want you to read the information about them, and I want you to kind of make a list of pros and cons on the either on a sheet of notebook paper or on the outside edge of what these representatives, what these men or women have that would make them a good senator. So you're going to do that first. Feel free to discuss with a partner or shoulder partner, and have that conversation. Make sure that you understand what all the qualifications are. Then you're going to flip it over and you're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 is really important because you need to know what to look for. What do you want to know more about these candidates? What would help you? So one of the candidates may give you some information, but it's not very specific, and you want to look up that information. So make a list, pretty detailed list of things for each candidate here that you want to look up. When you get done with question number 3, you're going to go up to the teacher, the sub, and he has a list of who the candidates really are. You're going to write their names in, and then you're going to complete number 4. And I'm going to ask you to go back to, sorry, oh, so sorry. Question number 1 and 2 are going to ask you specific questions about how you feel, what qualities you think are important, and what issues are important to you. Make a good list. Think about this. This is, is the environment, is education, immigration, healthcare, the economy. What are the issues that you find really important? They don't even have to be that broad. They can be a lot more specific than that. So when you get done, you're going to come down here to this number 4. And when you get to number 4, you're going to take those issues that you thought were really important, and I want you to research, because you will have the names of these candidates at this point. And you're going to research, what do they think about, if I said economy, what's their stand on the economy? I want to know, do we have the same ideals? Okay. And so when you're finished with all that, you're going to tell me, who do you think you would vote for? This process is really something that you should go through every time there's an election. It doesn't have to be this formal. It doesn't have to be something where you sit down and you actually go through these steps, but it is important that you guys have a process in line or in place so that, when you start hearing about candidates, how are you going to sort through them? How are you going to figure out which ones are going to represent you the best? Okay, so when you're finished with that, there's a short video on Google Classroom. In the Google Classroom folder. It's called gerrymandering. So you watch it when you're finished with this. And then once you finish up the core worksheet, the time is yours. You can work on, if you didn't get the gerrymandering worksheet, the marking the text finish, you can do that. You can work on vocabulary. You can work on objectives. There's no focus notes. I'm pretty sure I had them in the sub notes, but I went back and looked at the assignment sheet and I forgot that I took them all out. Okay, good luck. I'll see you guys next week. If you have any questions or concerns, just write them down. You can email me. I probably will not be back online until I get back next weekend or this weekend. So if you have any pressing questions about something specific, I'm probably not going to be the best person to answer. So have a great day, and thanks.